Happy Friday, everybody. Okay, so we're going back into the sweet. I tested this recipe last week. I made a Healthy Payday Bar. Oh my gosh. Okay, Ken says keep them in the fridge because they were a little soft. However, I'm going to change the recipe up a little bit today to try to firm up the center. But it is a date-sweetened Healthy Payday Bar. And I have a couple of boosts. You know, we can add some protein for a little more protein. It actually fits my macros better if we add protein powder and chia seeds, add a little extra fiber. So first, we're gonna start with a cup and a half of majuli dates. And I wanna make sure that, you know, please do not, if they're not pitted, break them apart, pull out the pit, because that won't be good for your immersion blender. So I actually had these soaked in warm water for about 15 minutes. It softens them up a little bit. This little guy didn't have that benefit, but that's okay. Gotta grab a towel. So we're going to drain the water because we don't want, like I said, the filling last week, I had a little problem with it being a little too soft. So now I also used, so this is what happens when you get a recipe from me. I always tweak them, okay? This original one that I'm working from is probably version 3. This is the one that I made last week. Absolutely delicious, but you had to keep it in the fridge, and it was so much better to use a spoon for it. So it wasn't really, I don't know. I wanted to make it better because you can always make things better. So I'm only doing a half batch today just because I'm trying so many things. But I also used a peanut butter that I purposely buy because it's more liquidy. So here's the thing: when you buy natural peanut butter, especially if you buy it from like a health food store or an Amish market or something that they just grind the peanuts, that is really thick. So if you're using it for baking, sometimes you kind of have to make some adjustments. So I like having both on hand because they're applicable for different things, right? So I purposely buy the Thrive Organic Peanut Butter. This one's really good. And then the other one is Richard's, Crazy Richard's. It is, you get it at Meijer's. I'm sure they have it everywhere. It is also a really nice, honestly, it's kind of like a pouring consistency, even when you stir it up. So it works for cookies and breads, muffins, so they don't get so dry, because sometimes when you use that all natural stuff, it is thick. So I used the thin stuff because that's what I had last week. And now I'm trying to thicken this up a little bit. So I don't know if you've ever tried, this is Elevi, something like that. ELAVI. Now I've used these before. This is like flavored cashew butter. Okay, so this is a chocolate fudge version because I was thinking I was going to drizzle these with chocolate, and then I was like, I have this in the cabinet. I'm gonna make like a more of a chocolate fudge center to give her a try. So this has cashew butter. It's like a superfoods butter, okay? So it has cashews, dates, coconut oil, coconut powder, sea salt, monk fruit. Okay, they have a few versions. They have a blue version that's a cake batter flavor, and it is made with spirulina. You know, it's delicious. They have a few. I have a spiced cookie butter. So we're going to use this today just to see if I can thicken this up. And because now you would need a half a cup of either almond butter or peanut butter. Now, this is like a payday bar. You want it to taste peanutty, right? So I use peanut butter, not almond butter. Now, today we are going to use this chocolate fudge cashew butter because I'm going for a little chocolate vibe, okay? So half cup is what it calls for. Like I said, I'm doing half a recipe. So I'm using 1/4 of a cup. Get that little guy out of here. And also, so last week, we're doing a little pinch of sea salt. Y'all know I don't mess around with my sea salt, right? I got a little container of it. Now, a dash of vanilla, and it is 2 tablespoons of melted coconut oil, and I am going to be using 1 tablespoon because I'm doing half of a batch. So, and you know, you could melt it, but honestly, I'm gonna use the immersion blender and put it all together, and it's so soft. I guess it depends on your coconut oil, right? And unsweetened, unrefined, obviously it's unsweetened. Unrefined, the better, the less refined anything is, the better. Okay, so I've got everything for the filling in here. Now, I'm going to blend this. Now, last week, just, you know, use your handy immersion blender. The dates are already soft from being in the water. And I can already tell this is going to be a lot thicker than last week's version because of this peanut butter or the cashew butter that I'm using. However, it's still going to be sticky. Doesn't have to be perfect, but you know, just get it nice and smooth. Okay, so this is pretty thick, and it's actually still a little warm because of the dates being soaked in warm water. Okay, now what I did last week, because it was a little flat with just the peanut butter and the dates, it was a little flat. Oh, that chocolate is a really good addition. Okay, so that actually is a little sweeter than last week's version. However, I am still, you kind of see it's still like, you know, picture a payday bar, right? It holds together a little bit better. So I put a tablespoon of honey in it last week to give it a little bit more sweetness. Well, this week I am going to use date sugar. And I know I've used this before. I've talked to you about my date syrup and date sugar before. This is from the Date Lady. You can get these on Amazon. This is just nothing but organic dried ground dates. So it sticks with the date theme. But the thing about this is it thickens whatever, so it almost acts like flour instead of a sweetener. So if you use this in baking instead of sugar, which I can do an episode on that another time, not necessarily what I would recommend, because if you're using it in high amounts, you're going to get the insulin spike. But in small amounts, and in this situation, I think it's going to do what we need to do. So I'm going to start with a tablespoon, and we're going to see what this does. So like I said, if you ever use this in regular baking, the date sugar, you will have to use less flour because it will thicken up for you. Okay, so look at that. I mean, you can see how it's really not drippy now. It's a little we got more of a blob effect. So it's not that sweet, honestly, but this is good. One more, I think 2 tablespoons will do it. And I think I might actually be able to roll it in the peanuts. So last week what I did, as written, as the recipe is written, and I will remember to post it. That's a problem. By the time I get done, I clean up the kitchen, and it's and then I totally forget to post the recipe. So, okay, now here we go. Look at that. That's a much better consistency. Okay, so what we did last week was took a small pan, okay? It was, honestly, it was a small, it's not, you could use a 9x9 or an 8x8. 8x8 would be perfect. I have this odd shape. You know, when you go to IKEA, they always have odd shapes of everything. So it's a little oblong. It's probably equal surface-wise to a 9x9 pan, but it's rectangle. So I lined that with parchment paper. I laid my peanuts down, and this was so pourable. Hey, Ginny, this was so pourable that did my parchment, laid my peanuts down, poured the date paste, and then more peanuts on top. Stuck it in the fridge. I was able to cut it, but like I said, it really needed to be in the refrigerator, and you really needed to use a spoon to eat it. Still delicious. So this is what I'm gonna do right here, okay? So pretend I'm in a pan, but my goal today is to try to get these to make little logs, okay? So it's gonna be messy, but I think it's gonna be okay. And you know, the joy of parchment paper, right? Because nothing sticks to it. And using the chocolate cashew butter, I saved myself the step of melting the chocolate and making that mess. I always try to keep things easy. So we're going to take this, like I said, we're just gonna play with it a little bit. Use the peanuts and use the parchment paper to shape it a little bit. I'm gonna throw some more peanuts on here. So, yeah, and it calls for 1.5 cups of peanuts, okay? So it is not, this is absolutely for the peanut lover, but we're just gonna make a little log, and I think this is gonna work pretty nicely. It's still gonna need to go in the fridge, but I'm gonna wrap it up right here. We're gonna make it a little bit thinner, and we're gonna be able to cut this into little sections. Actually, if we made a real mess, we could just make little, I kind of like this idea. We got little, oh, we have little payday balls. How's that? There you go. We'll pop these in the fridge, and they will be perfect little pack and go, right? Once they firm up. So I will post the recipe, and again, like I said, this is the second time I'm making them. The chocolate is an absolute good addition. It still tastes really peanutty, so I'm not too worried about that. And I will put the recipe in the comments, and we're talking, it will, if we added a 1/2 cup of protein powder, that's one of my hacks. Actually, 2 scoops, depending on your protein powder. That's about a 1/2 cup. That would absolutely thicken this up, and it would sweeten it. Again, my favorite protein powder is that Flav City. Hey, happy Friday, Jen. Thanks. My Flav City. So these actually, if we added the protein powder and threw in the brownie batter protein powder, would probably be amazing. But just play with it. That's the thing. You know, you can always, there are always workarounds. You can always make healthier versions of a food. So this has absolutely no added sugar. We have, if you cut this into 10, I think I did 12 last week. We're talking 220 calories, 6 grams of protein. If you add the protein powder, it's 10 grams of protein, 23 carbs. Now the carbs are from dates, which is all natural sugar. So because there's nothing else in here other than dates is the center, and nuts. 12 grams of healthy fat between the nuts and the coconut oil, and then 3 grams of fiber with nothing else in it. Throw in the chia seeds and you bump it up to a 5. So I will take that for a win for something that tastes like you're cheating. Seriously, last weekend we were eating these and we were feeling really guilty. And it was like, wait a minute, we really don't have anything to feel guilty about. So make them, let me know how you like them. Like I said, lots of different variations. You could even make them with almonds, cashews. I mean, so many things. Remember, everything in moderation. Have an awesome Labor Day weekend. Have a good one.